Okay, let's get the top voice on the show. Fareed Zakaria, global opinion commentator, speaking exclusively to NDTV. Mr. Zakaria, thanks so much for speaking to me. As we speak, there is enough and more that's happening as far as the US-India partnership is concerned. It's evolved. It's seen a huge amount of change and transformation since the Clinton and Bush era. How do you view it now in the backdrop of Modi 3.0 coming to power?
If you look at the Trump administration, one area where there was enormous continuity was on India. And in fact, Trump liked the fact that Modi was as popular as he was, particularly with Indians abroad. And so really the United States has made a strategic decision over the last 20 years to move closer to India and to try to make India part of the new Asian security system, naturally, largely in response to the rise of China. In that context, Modi coming back for a third term is a very beneficial thing for the US-India relations because it's continuity. Modi is a known character. But I don't want people to get the wrong impression. Had there been a change in government, I don't think there would have been any change in US-India relations because they have really been developing steadily more close for the last 25 years.
Absolutely. And while there is broad understanding and alignment on key strategic issues between US and India, I have to ask you this. How important or how significant do you think irritants like Pannun issue are? Or do you think they even matter in the larger scheme of the strategic partnership between India and US?
Look, there are always going to be some issues that cause disagreement, friction, tension between two countries. I mean, the United States has issues like that with European countries all the time, and they are the closest allies of the United States. I think that people were puzzled in Washington that the Indian government would be trying to do something of the nature of what it did. And frankly, it was a departure. It's not something the Indian government has done in the past very often. And so I think that they were more puzzled, taken aback, trying to figure out how to handle it. But I don't think it just seriously derails the relationship. It's an irritant. It has to be dealt with. And as far as I can tell, they have dealt with it, in a way that does not damage the overall relationship.
Before I come to your Mercurial Republican candidate, I must point out, Mr. Zakaria, that these are still allegations. New Delhi has denied all of them. And as you mentioned, these are just irritants in a much larger relationship. Now, speaking of the US elections, Republican candidate Donald Trump is viewed as mercurial. He's, in fact, viewed as being averse to globalization. How much impact do you think this will have on mechanisms like Quad, which have been revived against a very aggressive China? Do you think they could come under threat under a possible Trump presidency?
The Obama and Biden administration have pushed for a kind of new architecture of security in Asia, which involves other countries, which partners with them, which allies with them. And that's a kind of slow, painstaking process where you have to listen to other countries, understand what their concerns are, try to find a way to accommodate those concerns, as the Biden team has done with India, but also with Australia, with South Korea, with Japan. Trump, as I say, is more impulsive. He's more transactional. So it could be, there's upside there, which is he might decide, to do some big favor to India because he feels like this is worth doing for this one particular deal. On the other hand, he may ignore it. That you won't get that steady, predictable building of an alliance structure, of a security structure. What you'll get is more whimsical, more one-shot deals, some of which might be good, some of which might be bad. And by the way, this characterization that I'm giving you of the difference between the two is what worries large parts of the world, the unpredictability of it.
The unpredictability of a Trump administration. Speaking of the elections, Mr. Zakaria, how important is immigration? Do you think it's pretty much the fulcrum of what this election is all about? I'm asking you this also because Indians form a very large and sizable chunk of immigrants, and Republicans have been very vocal about it. President Biden is now coming out with executive orders on it. So how important is this issue in 2024 polls?
Immigration is huge in the context of the election. I think this is an election being fought largely on cultural issues, Immigration for the Republicans, abortion for the Democrats. The economy is doing fantastically. I mean, the U.S. economy, by any objective measure, is having one of its strongest periods in its history. Unemployment is at a 50-year low. Inflation is 3%. If you look at almost any measure, the United States is just towering over the rest of the world. You know, if you look at America's technology companies, they are absolutely dominant in their field. American banks are dominant. European banks are nowhere to be seen in comparison. America is the largest energy producer in the world. America now produces more oil than Saudi Arabia and more and more natural gas than Qatar. So you put all that together, it's a very powerful place. But President Biden is getting very little credit for it because the election is being fought largely on these cultural issues, immigration, abortion. And immigration is particularly important these days.
I think President Biden is getting credit for the turnaround that the U.S. economy has seen. But as we end this conversation, Mr. Zakaria, I want to ask you this, that what do you think are the big focus areas for U.S.-India ties going forward? Everything from 6G to space is being talked about. But in your perspective, what could be that defining aspect of this relationship?
Well, I think what India should strive for is to kind of create a technological corridor with America, because India's great opportunity now is to move up the technology value chain in the way that China did. You know, people don't realize, well, India has a tech sector. It's largely back office processing. It's fairly simple stuff that involves using lower price labor. What India needs to do is to move up the value chain and start producing really high quality products in technology and software and services and things like that, even inventing new technologies. Chinese companies in the technology space are much, much more advanced than India is. India could ally with the US, find ways to develop those technologies, get technology transfer, training, all that kind of thing. But India has to really make a decision that it's going to cast its future in that way. It needs to. India is still one of the, I think it is probably the most protectionist large economy in the world, which makes it very difficult for it to plug into the world of globalization, technology. It's difficult to be at the cutting edge when you are that protected. It still has so many features that remain part of the license quota Raj, particularly with regard to trade. And the BJP has traditionally not been very good about these issues because it has always been suspicious of the foreign world and foreign trade. So if it could really open itself up, ally with the US, I think you could see an enormous advance that would take place in India economically, technologically, scientifically. And that, I think, would be the thing that would really help India catapult itself. India has the potential to really be one of the great technology powers in the world. And technology is what is driving economics. It's what's driving the alleviation of poverty. It's what's driving the advancement of society. We live in an age of a digital revolution. And India needs to be at the forefront of that revolution. It couldn't get a better partner than the United States. American companies and American universities absolutely dominate this space. But India has to stop being reluctant and being kind of pulled along, kicking and screaming. It has to jump into this world and say, we want to be at the forefront. The way, for example, that Israel did, the way in which countries like Sweden and Britain have done. That's the potential future for India. I hope it takes it. I think America will find a willing partner and a ready partner in America. That would be more important to my mind for the life of average Indians than defense cooperation and things like that, which will happen and should happen. But it won't. That doesn't change the life of the average Indian. That doesn't move Indians out of poverty. That doesn't move India up the value chain. Embracing a technology corridor with the US, that would be a game changer.
Okay. All right. With that, thanks much, Mr. Zakaria, for speaking to NDTV. There is, of course, a lot that can be done as far as the India-US ties are concerned. Tech could be that one big X factor.